Ramshorn snails then. These hardy freshwater snail that grow to about an inch eventually are considered pest snails by some, but not me. I disagree with that. I think they are interesting and wonderful little creatures to keep in our aquariums. They can handle a wide range of parameters. For example, 21 to 26 degrees Celsius is going to be ideal for them, but they can survive in temperatures way outside of that zone. pH wise, 7 neutral is going to be best. Acidic water will eat away at their shells, which is when you get that kind of pitting effect you see sometimes. And they are bonkers. You'll often find them dive bombing from the top of the tank, dancing about in filter outlets, and even sometimes surfing across the aquarium. And they've got an amazing ability to land perfectly. They're going to need harder water for the minerals and calcium that it provides for their shell growth. Softer water, again, will result in the pitting. And you can deduce some of the snail's history from their shells. It grows from the inside out, so the water conditions can give an idea of how they were kept. Much like a tree has rings that you can measure, so the shell tells us what kind of conditions the snail has been in. If it's smooth and shiny, the snail has had everything that it needed. If it's brittle and faded, then the conditions were probably not ideal for it at that time. If your water is on the softer side, then you can supplement the snail with calcium by providing a food source that provides that. Or some people use a cuttlefish bone that you give to budgies that they can graze on, or baked eggshells. They are scavengers, so they will be part of your clean-up crew, eating dead plant matter and even dead animals from the bottom of your tank. However, they are quite small, so it would take a lot of them to put a dent if you've got a lot of waste in the bottom of your aquarium. They also eat biofilm and algae, but I wouldn't consider them a solution to an algae problem. For one thing, you would need an awful lot of them. For another reason, the way they eat the algae just tends to make patterns in it rather than totally clearing it up. And also, for what they're eating, they're also producing waste, which is going to fuel the algae when you think about it that way. Their waste will create ammonia, which if your tank is cycled will turn into nitrite and then nitrate, which of course may lead to more algae. So they will help to clean up. Being scavengers, they will eat any uneaten fish food that falls to the bottom of the tank. But in my opinion, we should also feed the snails themselves. After all, they are wee creatures that we are keeping. It's interesting, if you look close enough, you can see the mouth parts moving inside the snail. Sometimes you can see the heartbeat as well through the shell. But I got distracted there. So what do we want to feed them? anything really. Like I said, fish food is great. They'll enjoy the likes of science food, prepared foods like rapashi, algae wafers of course, snello. Some people make up their own mix of snello, which is ideal for them, and a great range of vegetables. They'll enjoy courgette or zucchini, kale, spinach, broccoli, and carrot seems to be a good one, as it tends to intensify the colours, of which there is a wide range, by the way. Not just in shell, but also in the foot, the fleshy part of the snail. You get leopard colours, white, black, pink, clear, pearl, purple, albino, and a few more. What they won't do is eat healthy plants, if that's a concern for you. If it looks like they're doing exactly that, chances are they're grazing on decaying plant matter and might be an indication of how well your plant is doing, or not for that case. Or they could be just grazing on the biofilm or microorganisms from the plant's surface, of course. They may start eating some of your softer plants, but generally that's only if they're not eating enough, if they're not getting enough food provided for them. However, feed them well and they will thrive, and overfeeding will no doubt lead to a population explosion. While we're talking about that though, they are hermaphrodite, which means they possess both male and female reproductive organs. That doesn't mean they can reproduce on their own. It takes two, as they say. There are reports that a single snail has reproduced. I wonder maybe if the snail was already pregnant though, if I'm honest with you. The science does kind of suggest you need one of each. And I did read somewhere that when two snails come together, it's the snail with the biggest male organs that supplies the male side of the bargain. I'll leave that with you. Due to that, there is no way to sex them because they are indeed both sexes at the same time. And they can reproduce very early on in their life cycle, and they are prolific. When they do get to the baby making, they lay gel-looking egg sacs on the surfaces, and it is actually really cool. When they lay them in a spot that's easy to observe, you can actually witness the tiny snails developing. And if you look really, really closely at the egg sacs, you sometimes see them moving about. It's not often we can watch something develop from a tiny embryo into its full adult form from start to finish, is it? Remarkable, really. Their ability to reproduce so quickly might be the appeal for some people because you could culture them as a food source. So, for example, if you had puffer fish or other animals that eat snails, it might be a nice way to ensure a regular supply. Otherwise, I think they make a really interesting, cute little pet and part of a wider ecosystem of an aquarium. I keep them in every tank that I can. When I say that I can, obviously, there are some aquarium inhabitants that will eat them. A lot of cichlids can be hard on snails and most loaches, of course. But if you've not got a fish that's going to eat them, they'll get on quite well with most aquarium inhabitants. They make excellent tank mates for shrimp, and they get on with most other snails, excluding assassin snails, of course. They would be considered to be an invasive species in many parts of the world, so if you're going to keep them, you need to make sure they don't get into any waterways near you. However, they are readily available and easy to acquire in areas that do permit them. If you have a friend nearby or an aquarius that keeps them, they're generally happy to share. Otherwise, they're pretty cheap to buy. As I said before, they're pretty interesting and very good fun. In terms of tank setup, pretty straightforward. Stable conditions, they probably would prefer a planted tank. However, light is not really important to them. The light would only be necessary for plants if you're going to do that. I mean, I'm aware some people raise them in buckets just for the sake of reproducing them, but I wouldn't like to do that. I would like to give them a nice home. Maybe I care more about that than they do, though, eh? The snails, I mean, of course, not the people keeping them in buckets. But yeah, if you're looking for something to keep in your aquarium that'll get on with most tank mates and will add interest and excitement to your experience, well then, the Ramshorn snail might just be a nice option for you.